Well, 35 years ago, Roy Ratnavel escaped torture and imprisonment in his home country of Sri Lanka during the Civil War. And with just $50 in his pocket, he fled here to Canada and rose from the mailroom to the executive office of the country's largest independent asset management company.
He writes about his amazing journey in his new memoir, Prisoner 1056. And Roy joins us now in studio. So glad you could have us. You could join us.
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning.
It is our pleasure. And this week holds much significance because this past Tuesday marks 35 years since you fled the Civil War in hopes of a better life here in Canada.
Correct.
For those who aren't all that familiar of what was going on in Sri Lanka back in the 80s, give us an idea of what it was like.
Okay, yeah. So Sri Lanka is geographically a small island nation in the south of India, and it was a former colony of Great Britain, and got independence in 1948. Then the country has two major linguistic groups: Tamils being the minority, and mostly Hindus, and Sinhalese being the majority, and predominantly Buddhist. And so after the British left, the country certainly ruled by the majority in a democratic setting. And then the first prime minister of the country enacted discriminatory laws that disadvantaged Tamils over the years and decades. And then 83 was the boiling point. There was a race riot that killed over 3,000 Tamils. People fled, and then the war broke out. So I was living in the north in 87. I was 17 years old. And that's when the Operation Liberation was called, where the government soldiers came in and took me away and put me in prison for a few months, and I was tortured, and I came to Canada after that.
Roy, can you tell us a little bit more about that time, about being imprisoned at the age of 17, only 17 years old?
Yeah, it was terrifying. I mean, no one should be in prison, especially in that type of situation. We were all young kids. We had no idea what was going on. The scariest thing is, the torture is obviously painful, and you never. I always say that the wounds always fester; they never heal. The emotional wound. But the scariest thing was not knowing what was going to happen, because a lot of the people don't make it out of there. And my parents had no idea where I was for months, and so that was scary. But I was miraculously I got out of prison, one of the luckiest ones. So I'm here talking to you as a free man in a free country.
There was an encounter in prison that kind of changed everything.
Correct. The wife of the defense minister then happened to come in on a mission, as in more like probably like a PR opportunity. And I thought I needed to get my message out to the world, at least to someone that will know who I was. So I was able to remember a phone number of my father's best friend, who was a colonel in the army. And I gave it to her and said, "This is I used to call him Uncle Fernando. Can you please tell him that I'm innocent, I'm here, I have nothing to do with any revolution?" And so to my surprise, she reached out to him, and he came and got me out of there.
Now, Roy, your father, he made it his mission to get you here, right? To get you to Canada. And sadly, he died just days after you arrived, that you landed here in Canada. And at the airport, we understand he gave you a very symbolic parting gift.
Yes. And ironically, we are talking on the exact day, 35 years ago, he was shot and killed. Today was the exact day, so it's sort of meant to be. He was a well-dressed man, and he likes to be groomed, and so he gave me a tie when I was leaving at the airport, and it said, "I want you to do one thing: don't just survive, but live." And so I made that as a mission in my life. And his untimely death left me with the feeling that if I did well enough in life, somehow I could make up for the life he should have had. And that became the drive, the focus, and the goal in my life. And I'm glad that I'm able to tell my story, his story, and really the collective Tamil story to the world.
Do you continue to hear his words?
Yeah, he's my constant advisor and disciplinarian, and he used to have these two things he used to say to me, a couple of things. "Son, there are two types of problems in the world, yours and everybody else's. You have to fix your own. 2, hard work wins. There's dignity in hard work. And 3, do things to perfection." So even if I am doing this well in life, he would probably say, "I would have done it differently." But anyways, I'm hoping that he is proud and somehow he's living through me and my son, his grandson.
No doubt, no doubt. And you say, Roy, that when you first embarked on this journey of writing this book, that when you sat down, it was like a dam broke?
Yeah, I mean, I had this idea of telling the story when I was in my early 30s, but you know, at the time I was too busy trying to build a life, and then in my early 50s, now I'm in, COVID happened, so we all had a bunch of time on our hands, and I thought I'm going to use it in a productive way and write something. April 4th, 2021, after Easter dinner, I told my wife after a couple of scotches, I said, I think I'm going to write a book tonight, honey. And she's like, well, not tonight. Maybe you should go to bed. And, but
Sounds awfully like your dad, too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she's my disciplinarian. I tell everybody that even though I'm not a prisoner, but I'm kind of one at home. Yeah, I started writing. I wrote my first sentence of the book, "There are places that will surprise you." And I sat there and stared at the screen for about an hour. And then I started writing. And it's like you said, dam broke. And I wrote 7,500 words-ish. And I went to bed at 7:30 in the morning, and I just never stopped after that. In fact, I wrote the book in a very record time, like 60 days, and I wrote 95,000 words.
Wow.
It's just because it was like rattling in my head for way too long, and it just came out.
Yeah, did it surprise you? I guess everything had just been welling up inside you for so long.
Yeah, and I think that the thing is, the book isn't just about suffering, it's about success. And I think what I'm trying to say here to the readers is that when people are given freedom and choice, the rest is up to us to figure out how to make that work. And a country like Canada should be celebrated for that kind of society that we built and enhance, embrace. And Canada has its own flaws, its historical issues, but by far one of the best countries in the world, a million times better than the world that I grew up in, and many people have grown up in. And I do say this, when you have freedom and choice, you will be rewarded for the good choices you make in life, and you will not be rewarded for the bad choices you make in life. And that's the price of freedom. And we could never forget that we should all be watchful and be on alert for anything that will restrict personal freedom and our democratic rights. And that is sort of the message that I'm trying to get at, is that what I call the third act. There are people come to this country, have done well, and that's the way it should be. And that's in itself is a great story. But what's the message here? The message is this: it is so easy to denounce freedom, but very difficult to attain it. So we have it, embrace it. It's such a precious commodity.
The book is called Prisoner 1056. It is available now. Roy, such a pleasure.
Thank you.